Hey guys, CommonSensei here, and welcome back to the I'm Just Sayin video podcast, where I serve as your tour guide through this minefield of liberal idiocy, ridiculousness, and stupidity. You know, sometimes it's kind of hard for me to pick one particular topic to talk about. There's so much going on in the White House and up on the Hill in Congress that the jokes, number one, kind of write themselves, and number two, it's very difficult to kind of narrow it down to one singular subject. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a series of shorter videos so that I can tackle a conglomerate of different issues one at a time. So please make sure that you check my channel, because I'm going to be posting videos a little bit more often than just the once a week or once every week and a half. Now, it's always fun to talk about the liberal hypocrisy and the flip-flopping as Democrats try to reposition what it is that they say they believe or that they say they support. One of the more popular topics at the current moment, at least politically, is racism. So this episode, we're going to talk about one particular brainchild by the name of Lori Lightfoot, who happens to be the mayor of Chicago. So before we go into that, I've got my Black Rifle coffee. Oh, that's good. I'm ready to go. Let's rock. Now, from the category of politicians who are three shades of stupid comes Lori Lightfoot, who, as I mentioned before, is the mayor of Chicago. Now, we all know that Chicago primarily is a Democratic liberal city, and that's neither this way or that. However, their mayor is an imbecile of absolute epic proportion. Now, if you don't know who Lori Lightfoot is, I'll show you a quick picture. Sorry, wrong picture. So Thursday, Lori Lightfoot announces that she's not going to give any more one-on-one interviews with white reporters. The only one-on-one interviews are going to be with reporters of color. Now, I have no problem with reporters of color. But here's the thing. She's claiming that the press corps in Chicago is predominantly white, which may be true, and I'm sure it probably is true. But here's the thing. If you're blocking out reporters because they're white, and that's the only reason that you're not going to do interviews with them, guess what, Mayor? That's racist. As the mayor of Chicago, you have a responsibility to all the citizens of Chicago, whether they're white, black, Hispanic, Asian, Native American, doesn't matter. You have a responsibility to every single one of your constituents, even if they didn't vote for you. So it doesn't matter what their skin color is. If you want to stop racism, stop practicing it. So Beetlejuice Lightfoot says, hey, we're just trying to battle systemic racism, which has been a problem in this country since 1619 when the first slave ship arrived on American shores, all the way through the Declaration of Independence, all the way through the Constitution, and the Emancipation Proclamation when President Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, through the Civil Rights Act, and to current day. Systemic racism has been a problem, right? I don't think so. Now, do I believe that there's racism in this country? Of course there's racism in this country. There's racism in every country. But let's be specific about something. Racism isn't specific to whites being racist towards blacks. I think we've talked about this before. Racism is racism, regardless of who dislikes who because of their skin color. White doesn't like black, black doesn't like white, Hispanic doesn't like white, white doesn't like Asian, Asian doesn't like Hispanic. We can go on and on. You get the idea. The term reverse racism is an idiotic term. There's no such thing as reverse racism. There is racism and there is a lack of racism. The reverse of something is the complete opposite of that thing. For example, the opposite of racism is no racism. So reverse racism would be no racism. Reverse racism is not black people disliking white people. That's still racism. If a Hispanic person doesn't like a black person, that's racism. If a white person doesn't like an Asian person, guess what? That's called racism. So the point here is, does racism exist? Of course it exists. It's naive to think that it doesn't exist. Is America a systemically racist country? No, not at all. If we were, how did Barack Obama, who was a black man, get elected not only once, but twice to the presidency? How is it that our first lady at the time was also black? If the system is stacked against people of color, how does that happen? How does somebody of color become the numero uno guy in the entire free world? It wasn't an accident, and I can certainly tell you this. For him to get elected, a whole heck of a lot of white people had to vote for him, considering that only 13% of the American population out of about 328 million are black. A vast majority of the people in this country are white. Whether you like it, agree with it, accept it is immaterial. The numbers are the numbers. Hey, Mayor Lightfoot, here's an idea. Maybe you should stop worrying about what color reporters are that are trying to interview you and pay a lot more attention to all the murders that are going on in the city of Chicago, particularly on the South Side. Guess what? Most of that is black on black crime. So, as a black woman and as a black mayor, if you're concerned about what's going on in the black community, do something about it. Stop worrying about things that don't matter and start worrying about things that do matter. If you want to bring people together, then stop the killing in Chicago. One of the things you could do is maybe start by supporting, the police department, which you haven't done for the last 2 years since you got elected. Might be a good idea to start doing that now, because guess who's going to help you stop a lot of the crime that's going on in the city of Chicago? The cops. You know, the ones you want to defund. Here's another funny fact. If we're so systemically racist as a country, and if the only reason that you're not giving white reporters the opportunity to interview as the mayor of the city, then why did you marry a white woman? Whew! What do you think the conversation was like in that household when she told her wife that she wasn't going to let white reporters interview her anymore? I'm sure wifey was just fine with that, don't you? Not that this should come as a surprise to anybody watching this right now, but guess what? That's right, you guessed it, Lori Beetlejuice Lightfoot, you just earned the Jackass of the Week award. Okay, there's some important numbers that you need to know when we're talking about systemic racism, particularly when it comes to slavery. Now, we talk about reparations and that white people absolutely 100% are racist. At least that's what the left wants us to believe. The fact that you are white automatically makes you a racist. Even if you don't know that you're a racist, you're still a racist. And the reason that you're racist is because white people enslaved people of color from 1619, when the first ship landed here, the first slave ship, all the way through, as we talked about before, to current day. Here's the thing. I don't know about you, but my family came here from Europe, and my family came here from Europe long after slavery was ended in this country. Nobody in my family history ever owned a slave. And the reason that's important to know is because very few people in the United States owned slaves. I'm going to give you some numbers. In 1860, right before the Civil War kicked off, guess what? There were 15 states in which slavery was legal. There was also a census done in 1860. Now, there were in those 15 states, there were a total of 12,240,293 people in those 15 states. A majority of those states were southern states. Now, a lot of those folks, of that over 12 million, were slaves. So let's talk about free people. There were 8,289,782 free men and women and children in those 15 states. Of that over 8 million, 393,975 people were slave owners. Do you know what percentage that is? I'll save you the time of doing the math. It's 4.75%, which means that 95.25% of the people in those 15 states where slavery was legal didn't own slaves. So, please, somebody explain to me how it is that 95.25% of the people who didn't own slaves, who also had descendants who didn't own slaves, who had descendants who didn't own slaves, who had descendants that didn't own slaves, should be held responsible for 4.75% of the population from 1860. Does that make any sense? Let me give you another example. We don't hold migrant children responsible when their parents break the law. We don't hold children of murderers responsible when their parent kills somebody. We don't hold children accountable when somebody does a Ponzi scheme and steals millions of dollars from someone. We don't hold children accountable when one of their family members are a drug dealer. So how is it that people today are responsible for the sins committed by people from 150, 200, 250, 300, 400 years ago? Especially when 95.25% of the population in the 15 states in which slavery was legal didn't even own slaves. Everybody watching this right now, and everybody not watching this right now, has had somebody in their family tree somewhere that was a complete douchebag that did something illegal that we don't want anybody to know about. It doesn't define you, doesn't define your children, and doesn't define any of the descendants that are going to come after you. Duh! But the left will have you believe that we're all racist. So let me ask you a question. Is America truly a systemic racist country in which white people just absolutely are racist against all people of color? I don't think so. And I don't think anybody with any kind of common sense thinks so either. I'm just saying. That's all I have for this episode of the I'm Just Sayin video podcast. Check me out on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram in the description down below. They're clickable links. Also, please hit that notification bell and that subscribe button. That subscribe button is right down there. Right there. Is it right there? That red one right there. It says subscribe. Right there. Anyway, I'm the CommonSensei. Appreciate you tuning in. Be good to each other. We'll see you next time.